Welcome back to another Dev Diary video. We are beginning now with Dev Diary 15, the dialogue choice systems. I am Forgotten Ronin, and let's just jump into it. So, with the summer break over, and we're back in with a juicy Dev Diary for us today. Sarah Longfor, the Chinese Room senior narrative designer and writer, will delve into the intricacies of our dialogue system and the thought process behind the design for Bloodlines 2. Uh, the journal delves into the inner workings of the branching dialogue code, which potentially contains minor spoilers. So, if you don't wanna, if you don't want to be spoiled, I'll be uh, putting up a timestamp where I'm basically done with this dev diary itself. So let's begin. So the presentation of dialogue options is different in Bloodlines 2. A lot of it stems from the Chinese Room's legacy of celebrating fully realized characterization and empowering voice actors to do more of the heavy lifting and explore more nuance. So to give an example, when selecting a dialogue option, players should know exactly what they're opting into. We've all known the frustration of, but that's not what I thought it meant. But kind of spelling out this requires precludes the ability to lean into the strengths of actors. This would also have caused problems for UI since Fire often has more to say than can be reasonably presented on screen, especially when we're also catering to console. Ultimately, the needs of the player were integral. Players should have all the information they need about their selected option and should feel confident in their choice, while the actor is allowed more playfulness in following that directive. Now, seeing as you're reading a dev diary, I assume that means that you've seen some game materials that we've already shared, which means that you'll notice an early result of the above dilemma. We've initially toyed with representing our dialogue choices in summary to make the intention of the branch abundantly clear and lean harder into our strategic approach to roleplay. More on that shortly. However, this quickly revealed itself as the wrong direction, and not just because you guys rightly said so. The weeds of our conversations, I found that the choices on offer felt samey when viewed from above, even when the content was entirely different. Zoom too far out, and you lose the fine detail, which is where your flavor lives. So we settled on a compromise, the tried and true next best thing. Carefully paraphrased speech. But what about the content of these choices? Remember what I said about strategies? The best way to approach choice design is to look at your theme. In Bloodlines 1, your options are a mix of strategy and humanity, with the options to throw into honor, for example, your clan. The same is true in other titles. In Baldur's Gate 3, choice options are themed roughly around simplified versions of the morality alignment seen in D&D. In Telltale's The Walking Dead, they're themed around the central question of, do you have to be cruel to survive? Vampire the Masquerade's World of Darkness is so named for its cynical perspective, its blood-tinted glasses, if you will. Kindred are natural extension, the metaphor of that worldview. The recurring motif is typically, how can I get what I want? With little being left off the table, though with room enough for those fading echoes of humanity to cling on, or at least appear to do so. In this way, Bloodlines 1 approach of marrying strategy with morality is the ideal decision, and it's the one we've chosen. But what does that mean for division of choice in more concrete terms? In other words, what courses of action might an elder vampire such as Fire consider? The first and most obvious is to lean into their status, age, potency, and power to intimidate those around them. In other contexts, this can manifest as being willing to voice the unpopular opinion and being direct about it, not beating around the bush, so to speak. After all, nobody fucks with an elder, right? Right? I mean, somebody fucked with us, so wrong. But what if they do? What if after a century in torpor, your age is all that's going for you? Age counts for a lot, true, but being kindred is about more than what's supernaturally afforded to you, and a clever vampire will have more up their sleeve than what their abilities allow. Other ways of exerting control. After all, bloodlines without some political scheming and intrigue just wouldn't be bloodlines. And that doesn't even account for Fire's unique and, well, unfortunate circumstances. Throwing your weight around isn't always the best option, especially in a world overrun with big egos and at least 13 different species of narcissists. Sometimes the best way to deal with someone is to let them take W for now. Stroke their pride, affirm their delusions, whisper honeyed lies, and fall under the radar of capability. Become the listening ear, the comforting shoulder, the trusted disciple. Such a strategy can take you far, assuming your victim buys it. Two ways to play the game, two extremes. So, what occupies the middle ground? A shrewd kindred may know better than to bet it all on a big play. Knowledge is power. Both others' knowledge of you and your knowledge of them. Better sometimes to remain a mystery to let others show their hand. Perhaps you achieve this by straightforwardly. Perhaps you achieve this straightforwardly by responding to the questions with more questions, or indirectly by choosing words that might provoke a reply. Telling outburst. By scooting back from the table, flipping the board, and laying the game bare. If social navigation among kindred is a careful masquerade, what happens if you rip off another's mask and expose the subtext, say, with perceptive observations? Of course, your options are not always strictly limited to these three approaches. We haven't forgotten about clan specific options, for instance, which is so nice, actually. Thank you for keeping that in there. And how each approach manifests will not always be uniform. You may also be sitting here wondering where humanity factors in. The beauty of this system lies in subjective interpretation, both by you and others. Unless clearly indicated, we will never assume the intent for your choice on your behalf. Perhaps you were buttering up Lou Graham, so your treachery would go unnoticed, but perhaps you genuinely admired her. Perhaps you wanted to make sure the young prince understood the hierarchy so they wouldn't mess with your plans. Or perhaps they were simply getting on your nerves. Strategy or sincerity? That much is up to you. But of course, I won't stop other characters from having their own interpretation. Uh, Conversations are not an exception to gameplay, but an expression of it. And if gameplay is a test of skill, conversations are a test of emotional intelligence. To that end, each of our characters in Bloodlines 2 has their own preferences and biases rooted firmly in who they are and what drives them, which, combined with your choices, determines and flavors their opinions of you. This is a little more in depth than like or dislike. Give a few simplistic, unrepresented examples. So said, no spoilers. Perhaps the compliment that you so pleased the Primogen came across as sarcasm to the Thin Blood. Perhaps to the Bruja, your bullying was a blush of life. You see, reactions to your choices are not uniform, but unique to the NPC and their unique disposition. And you'll have to put some work into figuring out what makes them tick. And here we have just a little dialogue tree. Hmm. Above is a screenshot from our Inky editor showing how player choice influences perception and relationships in aggregate. In the top choice, Fire protests Lou's intrusion on a private meeting, and if Lou's not used to this behavior from Fire, she will be slightly taken aback, responding with someone's touchy tonight before rejoining the branch that everyone else who took this option will see. My child and I have no secrets, do we, darling? Regardless of choosing this option, will adversely affect Lou's opinion of Fire. Indicated by Lou dislike that, which over time can layer with her perception that Fire is a bully, an empath, or sage. RF unimpressed represents the nature of her displeasure, which feeds the UI players will see. In the second choice, softer option, welcome, Blue's interpretation of fire response is again distorted by her existing perception of who fire is, which in turn affects whether her opinion of fire goes up or down. If she used to, if she's used to you being aggressive, but here you chose a softer route, she'll assume you're being sarcastic and become annoyed, lowering her opinion. After all, Lou is fluent in sarcasm, so it's no stretch that she would project this into others. However, if you're not usually aggressive, then she'll take you at your word and respond favorably, with her opinion rising in tandem. In this bench, there is no merge. Players either see, well, there's no need for sarcasm, or, and it's in part thanks to you. So the we do get that weird like telltale games. Oh, blank will remember that. Oh, blank will remember that type stuff. Okay. Two variations of Lou reacting to the above scene depending on if you irritate or please her. Um, but this is also accumulative. If you have always come across as weak, for better or for worse, sudden strength could have its own unique response. The same goes if you have a reputation for directness or for keeping your cards close to your chest. Things like your clan and the details of your legend color how others see you, as well as the color of the lens through which they filter their reality. But so do your actions over time. And let's not forget context and situational factors. What worked once won't necessarily work another time. Um, we don't want you to getting complacent, picking options transactionally to fill up some bar or progress some metric. We want you thinking, engaging from moment to moment, as a kindred would. And that's good. It's just, to me, that's really good. I enjoy it. Um, it's a good it's a good thought process to go into whenever you're dealing with uh, just branching trees, because people want the actual like talking to be uh, to be something that can be weighted against what their actions do. Um, so like it's it's always good to see that actually being used in that way, in that fashion. And like they said in Baldur's Gate 3, uh, you have that bar, quote unquote, where it lets you know what others think of the choice you took. If this is not just that, but um, with every action, if you do something completely opposite afterwards, it completely just messes up and it feels like you actually like hurt them. Like that's a good thing to have, and it makes more people think, which I like. All right, so Camarilla Court. So the team at Chinese Room has been hard at work, and we're excited to show you the cast of our Camarilla Kindred this weekend or this week. So Seattle is dominated by the Camarilla for a century. It's an organization of vampires that has fingers in many aspects of mortal society to keep power. Camarilla Court is under the leadership of Prince, who dictates the laws maintaining the masquerade. Under the prince, there are several official positions, such as the Primogen, who represent major clans, and a sheriff to enforce the Camarilla law. Each has a place in the nightly affairs of Seattle. And exploring the city will introduce you to these kindred, and you'll have the opportunity to talk and learn about them in their preferred surroundings. Fire's relationship with each can develop as you spend more time with them. Depending on how you play the game of vampiric politics with them, they may grow to adore or abhor you. In this diary, we're sharing some of the profiles of the kindred in the Seattle Camarilla, provided by writer Cherish Goldstraw and narrative director Ian Thomas, as if someone were describing them to you in universe. This is the structure of the Camarilla, as you'll learn by the start of the story. So We have characters like Fletcher, who's the Master of Elysium, Nico, the Banu Hakim Primogen, and then Simeon Silky Laddock, the Bruja Primogen, and Mrs. Thorne, the Premier Magister, that also live in Seattle too, and you can find them in their respective dev diaries. Where is that? Because I've only seen I've only seen a couple in others. So we have the Prince, J.J. Campbell. Quote, I know. I see the smile that doesn't reach that I see the smile that does not reach your eyes. I see the brow that furrows, the dawn of panic. I see the tension in your shoulders, the hands that clench. Oh yes, I know. Why should my next word not end you? And then Campbell is power personified. As the last century grew, he consolidated the kindred's hold on the streets. As the city rose, so did Weaver Tower and the court, with tendrils into politics, business, and society. With the underworld, once Lou's protege, it is now Campbell, urbane, perceptive, commanding, who leads Seattle into the future as Prince of the City. Lou Graham. Oh, this is ridiculous. Something must be done. I know it is quite the fashion to hear a wide range of opinions, but blood under the nails is such a nuisance. In life, Lou Graham pulled all the strings of the elite in Seattle. She had the ears of politicians, criminals, blue bloods, and commoners alike. And in life, she has spent more than a century deepening that hold. She looms over Seattle as a storm cloud, a constant factor in the choices of even the most powerful kindred. Despite her absence from day to day politics, to badmouth Lou Graham is to badmouth the city. And this city has a habit of burying its foes down deep. Ryong Choi, the Ventru Seneschal. I'm not sure you grasp the situation. You will act in this as my agent, and in return, you will gain both the benefits and responsibilities of that. It is not negotiable. You could, of course, refuse, but the sun is rising. Ryong is of a new breed, a deal maker, modern, efficient, and pragmatic. With a city under threat and with the masquerade in tatters, Ryong is the calm center of the chaos, negotiating, outmaneuvering, and doing everything that must be done to maintain stability. She is not afraid to cut away dead flesh if it will help save the whole. Nice. The Nosferatu Herald. Michael Tolley Tolliver. Hey, it's the festive season. I'm just out for a stroll. I figure I bring joy to the world, and this little chat is courtesy of my selfless desire to entertain the elderly. So listen up, nomad. Most Nosferatu will hide themselves away from the world, but Tolly knows how little attention today's mortals really pay to anything. The gregarious and gleeful intelligencer will be found where he's least expected, always spinning webs for the court, nudging this, gathering compromising information on that. Tolly knows where the bodies are buried and has probably dug them up, critiqued their dress sense, and has long, very pointed conversation with them about their stupid indiscretions. The Bruja Sheriff, Benny Muldoon. You have one night. One night to sort your business and get the fuck out of Seattle. After that, it's open season. Benny is the attack dog of the court, the enforcer, the bruiser, the bone breaker. You want him leashed up and snarling at your enemies, not biting at your heels. So get on his good side. He despises those who he sees as lesser bloodlines, and prides himself on his ability to sniff out those who are working against Seattle's best interests. If you're lucky, you'll find him standing at the prince's side. If you're less lucky, you'll encounter him elsewhere. The Tremere researcher Sophia Ulusoy. That's fascinating. You wouldn't mind if I take a closer look? 14th century, I'm almost sure. And look at these markings. Hermetic in nature, obviously. Could you just let me. Oops. Sorry, I'll clean that up. Sophia is a eager enthusiast, her attention caught by theories, facts, and the fascination of learning both from the old and new. If the court has questions, she's the one to find answers. Her skills with thaumaturgy and her dogged research techniques have proved worth to Seattle. No matter the current standing of her clan, recently she's been investigating the city's growing thin blood population, a particular concern to the court. However, her focus does tend to distract her from the more mundane world. You'll probably find her in a lab or lost in a pile of books at the Wake the Dead coffee bar. We have the Toreador Primogen, Isabella Moore. The delicate brutality to pursue one's special idea. All art is violence without the right canvas. Isabella, queen of the nightlife, stalks her way through Seattle society as a trendsetter, bon vivant, uh, nightclub diva, and performance artist extraordinaire. Her legendary events at the Atrium nightclub thrill and shock. The mortals flock to be part of her world. There are some in the court who believe she treads perilously close to the edge of the masquerade. Isabella wields her art like weapon. To her, self-expression is much more than any stricture. Nice. At least we're seeing like other clans other than the four that we're playing as, which is nice. Nosferatu's secret keeper, Willem Axel. You don't understand, Nomad. If I took away their little black book, all their secrets, what would they have left? Willem is the prince's archivist, keeping a century of secrets safe from the prying eyes of mortals and kindred alike. He's long ago hidden himself away from Seattle society, unwilling to show his face on the streets, but maintains his contacts among the kindred and the courts and the underworld of the city. Willem is never one to put himself forward or voice his opinion, and this might lead others to overlook him or take him for granted, but he has the trades, transgressions, and debts are at his fingertips, and such knowledge can be used as a knife. It's nice. I like it. I wish we would know more about other Primogen. Yeah, I wish we would know more about Primogen because uh, that would be a pretty cool. It would be a pretty cool thing to actually like have. Is to know more Primogen that are going to be in the story, and this is not that bad. Right, so we'll move on to the next one, which is the Anarchs and Unbound. So, the we're gonna start this with the Anarchs and the Unbound. The Unbound are all those vampires who fall outside the Camarilla. The Anarch movement, in its various forms, is a subset of the Unbound and their most visible manifestation. Many seek to escape from the Camarilla control by hiding, but those loyal to the movement have decided to fight back, attempting to conquer and control domains originally held by those who would claim themselves their masters. The Anarch movement is different in each city. Sometimes an Anarch city has a ruler called a Baron. More commonly, it's led by gangs who each have their own territories. Some cities are currently divided between Anarchs and Camarilla vampires, both sides itching to take over. Where Camarilla vampires usually influence mortal societies from the outside, Anarchs burrow deep inside. Many maintain moral identities, perhaps even families and jobs. This makes them simultaneously more vulnerable and more secure. Vulnerable because they are in contact with their surroundings every night and are sure to make mistakes. Secure because the Anarch is never the vampire lord in a mansion on the hill. They're the DJ in the nightclub, the terrifying cop from internal affairs, the junkie creeping outside your window. From the fifth edition book. Uh, so, the strength of each vampire embrace is more dilute than that of their sire. Thin bloods have earned their name because their blood is seen as too distantly removed from the original progenitor Cain. Most kindred consider them a weakness and an embarrassment to their kind, or even a threat. Thinbloods are not considered part of any clan, but rather the dregs of kindred society. Many view Thinbloods as a risk to the masquerade due to their close ties with the mortal world, often leading to their being hunted and destroyed without a second thought. Overlooked and downtrodden, they banded together in form of resistance. Seattle acts as a haven of a sort. In this city, the weak blooded are not destroyed out of hand. Instead, by order of Prince Campbell, they must be branded to set them apart from true vampires. Only then will he allow them to remain. Many have found shelter amongst those of Seattle's anarchs, particularly under the watchful eye of the Bruja Katsumi, who leads one of the major anarch groups and has, because of her involvement with the Thinbloods, been branded as one herself. As newly minted sheriff, Fire must negotiate the delicate balance between Katsumi's people and the Camarilla, and deal with the fact that many anarchs and Thinbloods don't respect anyone as leader. Seattle is a powder keg, and each faction waits for its opportunity, some more patient than others. If Fire is seeking Katsumi, she may find her at a bar called Hole in the Wall with other misfits of her cause. Alright, so Katsumi Ishizaki, tell the prince I'm busy. The only blood around here is anarch. Always the way, right? I'm gonna deal with it. Katsumi is a reluctant leader forced by the circumstances to speak for one of the larger groups of kindred that consist of anarchs, thinbloods, and other dregs of the city. She maintains an uneasy peace with the court, keeping a lid on the demands and fears of her followers as best she can. You'll find her on the streets among those who need her most, or at one of the spaces she maintains to keep her charges out of trouble. In her mortal life, she used to be a surgeon, and while she's still trying to fix things, nowadays she's mostly doing triage. Max Weber. Bruja. 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 Okay. I was a piece of shit when I was mortal, but the embrace changed me. It took all my fear away, and I started to figure most assholes are just scared. I saw something in Benny. I thought he might be like me. Usually placid for a Bruja and unusually submissive for a sire, Max is something of an anomaly. Preferring to steer clear of both Camarilla and the Anarchs, the only kindred Max seems to want any relationship with is his intimidating child, Benny, the Camarilla sheriff. While many sires would forbid their child from joining the court without them, Max seems content to live in Benny's formidable shadow. The strange dynamic between the two has raised many a kindred eyebrow, but few dare raise a voice for fear of rousing the sheriff's ire. Mm. Nicola Nix Lee. These city bloodsuckers live in a whole different world. Everyone's playing these high stakes mind games, and I can't even beat that peg game over there at the wagon wheel. I need to find ways to be useful if I want to survive here. Confident, brash, and not to be trifled with, Nyx loves the thrill of the hunt and fights like a beast unleashed. However, her kind are not usually city dwellers, and Nyx has little patience or aptitude for navigating the intricacies of vampire politics. Nobody knows why she suddenly appeared in Seattle, and the Camarilla are naturally suspicious. But the possibility of enticing a leashed gangrel into their ranks is tempting prospect. So the Anarch, Thinblood, and Ghoul enemies. The Anarchs are the first and most numerous faction you'll be butting heads with in Bloodlines 2. While Katsumi has the respect of the larger portion of the Anarchs and Thinbloods, not all of them follow her orders. Many have taken up residence in places you'll need to investigate or are actively working against you. That means that among the many enemies you'll face, Anarchs will use their powers against you, and so their members are as good as baseline for kinds of threats you'll face throughout the game. Roving gangs of fidgeting ghouls, armed with whatever they can get their hands on, and young opportunistic kindred too naive to see the danger in taking an elder face to face. Ghouls are a tough bunch. They can take significantly more beating than your run of the mill human, but they aren't much of a threat alone. It's when they work together, some bludgeoning you about, others carving you up, that you'll want to take them seriously. So keeping things quiet is a sensible approach. Their kindred masters are much more potent threat. While they are not as skilled as in their disciplines as others, they more than make up for it in hardware. As the situation in Seattle heats up, the Anarchs become more militaristic and heavily armed, but at their core, they've got more humanity than most. They'll be hesitant to shoot with their friends in the way, more receptive to manipulation, and slower to catch who's been turned against them. All weaknesses that can be exploited. And that's sick. Being like this, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. And then I do like that they have the dates for them. But I believe that this one, it's a good place to stop it, knowing whom we're going to be with the Camarilla and the Anarchs and the Unbound. So I'm going to be leaving it there. If you like the video, please like, share, subscribe. And I do hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you have a very nice day, night, evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. And I hope to see you soon.